All right. We've been looking at comparing the teachings of God to doctrines of men, and we've been looking at the Catholic Church, and we got a start into that. Point 4. Again, we're using the book, Alvin Jennings' book, Traditions of Men versus the Word of God. And so this was where we left off. And just to remind you of that point that we're looking at. So this is the teachings of the Catholic Church. Again, we're trying to not take it out of context, but what they say about their own beliefs. Number one, the priest is another Christ, the means of access between the sinner and God, who holds the place of God. So the priest holding the place of God. More certainty of doing the will of God by obedience to superiors than by obedience to Jesus Christ. Kind of a little bit of a disturbing statement to me in reading that. Catholics and non-Catholics are expected to call priest Father. And 3, the priest has power to forgive sins. He receives gifts to say prayers. So the priest has that ability to forgive your sins. Well, what does the Bible say on these topics? So I want to take that first one about the priest being another Christ. I think the bell calls, we were looking at this last time, about right in here. There's only one mediator, we're told in the scriptures. That's it. 1 Timothy 2, verse 5. For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus. So here's our go-between. He's our mediator. He is one we're told in the book of Romans that reconciles us to God, makes us friends again, brings us at peace with God. Christ has the only unchangeable priesthood. We read in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews 7, verse 11 says, if therefore perfection were by the Levitical priesthood, for under it people received the law, what further need was there that another priest should rise after the order of Melchizedek and not be called after the order of Aaron? For the priesthood being changed, there's made a necessity a change also of the law. Verse 22, that same passage says, by so much was Jesus made a surety of a better testament. And they truly were many priests, because they were not suffered to continue by reason of death. But this man, because he continueth ever, hath an unchanging priesthood. So Jesus is our high priest forever and ever and ever. All Christians are priests who have access to God through Christ. And Brother Henry mentioned this a while back, and that's exactly right. The Bible refers to us as being priests. Every Christian has that ability to go to God in prayer. What a wonderful gift that is that you and I have. 1 Peter 2 and verse 5. Ye also, as lively stones, are built up a spiritual house, an holy priesthood, to offer up spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God by Jesus Christ. So we're a holy priesthood. We offer up sacrifice. The sacrifice of prayer, singing, Hebrews 13:15, I think it is, talks about the fruit of the lips being praise to God or sacrifice to God. 1 Peter 2:9. But ye, Christians, the church, are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, an holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praise of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So we all have the role of priest. We all, through Jesus, have access to God. That is really cool. I don't have to go through a man to reach God, other than Christ, of course.
So is that saying that I'm peculiar? Is that what that's saying?
I think so, brother.
The world, we're out of this world, is what it means.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
know what it says, you are peculiar.
I thought everybody would give an amen there.
Yeah, I think I've heard Brother Joel describe that in the original Greek as being a purchased people or this sort of thing.
Exactly.
But certainly we are different from the world, we're told in the
There's so many statements in the Bible like there be a one mediator between God and man that the Catholic Church just ignores.
Yes.
Eating certain foods, forbid marriage, I mean, it's things the Bible okays or denies, and they don't pay any attention to that at all. It's hard to understand.
It really is. I think it goes back so much, I believe, more and more, that humble heart of being able to see the Bible. God says this. I empty myself and say, okay, Lord, I'm going to do it your way. And it's hard for people to do that.
You know, I believe this, you have to be of a spiritual mindset, study the Bible, and accept it as it is, what it said.
Yes, sir.
You know, you must be of a spiritual mindset. In John 4, you know, God is a spirit, you know, they that worship him can
Must.
worship him. You know, so I think that's imperative that you be of a spiritual mindset when you
Yes, sir.
study the Bible. Because there's a lot of smart men that ignore what the Bible say. You know, that he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. then you got wise, smart people, I wouldn't call them wise, that say you don't have to be baptized to be saved.
Yeah.
You know, I watch Joel Osteen sometime, you know, and Franklin Graham. Just pray this prayer with me, you know.
Yeah.
You'll be saved. You know, they're too smart of people to really believe that themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it is except the fact that they're not spiritual.
I don't know. I think so much of it is when you hear something over and over and over again from a really young age, you believe it. It's hard to change that thinking.
It's been said that a Catholic person said if you keep a Catholic kid for 2 years, it's hard to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all there's up to the age 7, if they keep it at age 7, they've got it.
Yeah.
And you drill something in a person, I guess that's so.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Great point. Great point, brother. All right. The idea of calling the priest father. Says everybody's call us father. Well, what did Jesus say about it? Matthew 23, verses 8 through 10. But be ye not called rabbi, for one is your master, even Christ, and all ye are brethren. Again, how could it get any plainer than this next part? And call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your father, which in heaven. Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. So again, father, in terms of a title on somebody, it's pretty plain right there. That's not what we're to do. We're not to call a man father. Forgiveness of sins. All right, the idea of priest can forgive sins. All right, what does the Bible say about forgiveness of sins? Forgiveness of sins belongs to God, to deity. In Mark 2, verse 5 and 10, you recall this account. This is when the lame man was lowered through the roof down to the Lord, and eventually Jesus healed him on that occasion. It says, when Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But that you may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins, then he raised him. But Jesus has the power to forgive sins. 1 John 1 and verse 9, if we confess our sins, he, the Lord, is faithful and just to forgive us our sins and to cleanse us all unrighteousness. So forgiveness, again, belongs to God. He is the one that can do that. 1 John 2 and verse 1, my little children, these things write I unto you, that you sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous. Again, the idea of him being the mediator. Through Jesus, we can receive forgiveness. He is our go-between to reach God. This idea of forgiveness can't be bought. Can't be bought with money. Jesus bought it with his blood. No amount of money can purchase that gift. So the gift of God cannot be purchased with money. 1 Peter 1:18 and 19. Peter writes, for as much as you know that you were not redeemed, you weren't bought with corruptible things as silver and gold. You didn't buy your salvation from your vain conversation received by tradition from your fathers. You weren't bought from your old life with monetary things, but with the precious blood of Christ as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. That's that unspeakable gift that Paul writes about in 2 Corinthians 9:15, that there's no amount of money in the world that could buy that gift. So forgiveness comes through Jesus. All right, any other thoughts or comments on this point?
I would just double down on what Lloyd said. We are a forgetful people, but yet at the same time, because of that, I think the Lord was, with all his wisdom, knew that he better word it and reword it and reword it, because we're just too forgetful. And but it's hard to believe that anybody who's read this and I like what your dad said several times about I'm drawing a blank suddenly. The idea of anybody who's ever read the Bible cannot see see how we should name the church after Christ. I mean, how could you? And then on top of that, there are so many other things that's written over and over and over again for us to reread and help us not forget, and yet somehow these people don't even give it the time of day or even it just doesn't seem like it's very important to them, I guess, is part of what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's a good point. I think that's why David talked about in Psalm 1 and verse 2 about meditating upon it day and night. You know, it's something that we think about. We may not sit and read it 24 hours a day, but those words are constantly in our thoughts and mind. It is in me, and I know it is in y'all too. As you go through the day and you come across different situations, you know, little verses, you know, kind of pop into your mind about various situations. So I think that's the key, to read and study. I think you're right. You know, we talked about in the Middle Ages, it being unlawful to own a copy of the Bible for an average Christian, which is just, it's mind-blowing still to me to think that religious people forbade other Christians to read the Word. Today, though, we have access to it, maybe more access, I guess, than ever in history, on our phones and everything else that we can read and study it. But you wonder, how much do people really, that's a good point, Brother Scott, how much do they really read it and study it, you know?
You know, we as a people nowadays, we are into more things that's tangible, you know, not spiritual. You know, I go back to that, you know, things that we can touch and see, you know. But the fact of the matter with Christ, you know, we can't see him or touch him, but we have to have a relationship with him. And the way we do that is through the Bible. You know, read it, study it, and pray. But we want things we can touch and see and feel,
Yes, sir.
you know, tangible things,
Yes, sir.
not spiritual things.
Yes, sir.
The average person, you know, they say, yeah, I believe in God. Well, James said the devil also believed, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, that's a great point. You know, and while you're saying that, it reminded me too, you know, we talk about there being so much access to God's Word. I think part of the problem, and I think about this a lot with the parable of the sower and the seed, we talk about those thorns growing and choking out the Word. I think there's so many other things out there for people to do today. You know, I mean, talking about the phone, so many things people do on their phone, you know, play a game or look up this or that or whatever. So it's just, there's so many distractions. I don't know if y'all may disagree with that, but it just seems like to me there's a lot more things to distract people to take you away to do other things. Not even just religious. My dad and I talk about that. You know, you think about Friday nights in Foley, Alabama, 40 or 50 years ago. Everybody's going to be at the football game. I mean, almost the whole town is going to show up at the football game. It's not like that anymore. And that's with me too. You know, if I'm not coaching, I don't have a burning desire. I'm thinking about where to go eat, you know, Friday night or whatever, you know. But there's so many things out there to draw us away from God and to take up our time. It just really is. So I think that's, and again, I can't speak for y'all, but that's a battle for me too. You know, it's, even our jobs can be like that. You know, when you teach and coach, for instance, I mean, that can be really, really time consuming. You can spend your whole time working on lessons to prepare to teach your kids at school. And again, that can, not that there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but it kind of takes you away. There's so many things out there to take away our spiritual mindset that you're talking about. That's a great point.
No, I'm talking about the world as a whole, things which are tangible, which we can see and touch and feel. Now, I heard it stated one time, and you probably have too, but the world says, I see it, therefore I believe it. And the Christian says, I believe it, therefore I see
Yes.
it.
Yes.
That's where faith comes in.
That's exactly right. And, you know, it kind of goes back to our discussion recently, creation versus evolution. It's that way for me, and I know it is for y'all too. You know, that science says this, but God's Word says this. That's what I believe. And I think when you study, I think the evidence points to what God says. But yeah, I mean, we have that faith. We trust God and trust His Word, whatever He says on any subject. It has to be our mindset. Great point. Great
You know,
point.
it's like Charlie say, seek ye the kingdom.
Yes. That's
All
right.
these other things, this righteousness and all these other things we added unto you. You know, we got to do that. We must
Yes, sir.
do that.
That's right.
We must
That's right.
do that.
Amen. Amen. All right, purgatory. So here's the Catholic tradition, Catholic teaching along this line. And this is from the Council of Florence of 1439. This has been around for a long time, even going back as early as 6th century, they were teaching this idea. There is an intermediate state or place called purgatory where the dead go to suffer punishment until they can be purified. It was made an official doctrine, though man began to teach the idea as early as the 6th century. These people have not fully made amends for their failings, so must atone for them by suffering before being admitted into heaven. These sufferings are lessened by prayers and masses according to the Council of Trent, which was 1563. So the idea that, and I had a student in my class ask me a question like that this week. And from a human standpoint, it kind of makes sense. They were saying, well, I mean, if we don't make it, is that really eternity? Is there any chance of getting out of it after a while? Well, again, that's men's thinking. From our point of view, the idea of busting out, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in the Scriptures. And, when we talk about paradise and torment, I'll share with you what Jesus said in Luke 19. I actually had a parent, it's been 5 or 6 years ago, saying that I was teaching about purgatory, which, I was teaching about paradise and torment and that sort of thing. But anyway, I had to try to straighten them out a little bit with that. The idea of being able to get out of that place, to get out of that punishment. The Bible says over and over it's an eternal punishment. So here's a few things related to that. Prayers of saints or others cannot change our destiny after death. As we talked about, one of the things when you study about the time of Martin Luther was that people going around selling these indulgences. So basically, it was like a get out of purgatory pass, basically. If you paid enough money, the priest would pray for you, and then according to them, that person was taken out of punishment. Or even you, if you had plans to, or some sin I'd like to get involved in tonight, let me see if I can buy a certificate to, that's kind of the mindset of that. That is so far unscriptural and unbiblical from so many standpoints. And so one of the things when you study, as I think I mentioned y'all, when you study Martin Luther's 95 Theses that he proclaimed in 1517, a lot of that was dealing with indulgences and the problems he saw with that, the falseness of that he saw. But Hebrews 9:27 says, as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. As long as we are living and breathing, blood is pumping through our veins, we can do something about our eternal destiny, for the good or for the bad. So we can impact that by, I say we, of course we're saved by Christ, but in complying with what he has told us to do. So we can receive that forgiveness. Doesn't matter how bad somebody has been. We talked before about Jeffrey Dahmer. Horrendous what he did from a human standpoint. It'd be hard to think about forgiving him. Supposedly, he became a Christian. And I'm not the judge. Did he really? Only God knows. But if he was truly sincere in that, then he could be forgiven of those sins. So as long as we're living, we can be forgiven of whatever we've done. But once we die, our fate is sealed.
As far as we are, as far as we're concerned, if he indicated that he believed and was baptized, we have no other choice but to accept him.
Yeah.
And again, that was some pretty horrendous things
Yes,
that he did.
absolutely.
And gave a lot of people nightmares. And but of course, I guess that's where you talk about separating the wheat from the chaff. And
Yeah.
if I said that correct, but it's it is kind of strange that we are just automatically to accept him, unless there's something out there that we know of. But yet at the same time, as long as his heart's right,
Yeah.
He should be in heaven.
Yeah.
And it's a strange consideration.
Yeah. Where the Bible says that God's ways and thoughts are higher than our thoughts and our ways. It's hard for us to understand some of that from a human standpoint.
It is amazing how long we can stay out away from the church and come back in almost at the 12th hour.
Absolutely.
And be accepted. And it's the scriptures that talk about that some people work for years and years and years to hopefully have themselves accepted by God. And of course, as long as we do his will, we have blessed assurance. And I don't know, I don't mean to keep running that in the ground, but it's just
Is that parable of the laborers where the.
Yeah, Matthew 20. Matthew 20.
Hired, it doesn't matter if you start early in the
Yep.
morning, if you hired on late in the day, you got the same pay at the end.
Yep,
Right.
yep,
Just, you know, and when you talk about it that way, about like a job and being hired, kind of seems a little unfair.
Yeah.
But yet
well, that's
at
what
the
those,
same
that's
time-
what those people that worked all day were saying.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not fair.
Exactly.
But,
But you know, Peter talks about God is not willing that any should
yes,
perish.
yes,
You know, not willing that any, there's no stipulation or conditions on that.
yep,
Not willing that any should perish.
Yep.
You know, murderers, fornicators, whoever. You know, but that all come to repentance. So,
It's always amazed me that our lives may seem long to us, but compared to eternity, they're just a dot. you
yes,
know?
yes,
And yet, on that dot determines where we are going to spend
yes,
eternity.
yes.
And how we
right, that
use our
dash.
lives.
Well, that's a great point. There's so many people that say, well, the Christian life is so hard. It's so hard to live that for so many years. It's really not. I mean, talk about these people that have died. I mean, just, and not just recently, but, I mean, I think about, I mean, it's hard for me to believe that I'm 56, for instance. I mean, it just seemed like yesterday. I was 18, 20, 21. You know, where did the time go? I mean, so the time goes so fast. I saw where the actor that played Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies, Carl Weathers, died this past week. I think,
76.
76. You think about how athletic he was. I mean, all those Rocky movies I've seen over and over again. But he died at the age of 76. How quick just yesterday it seemed like he was in his 20s and 30s, you know, making those movies. So, I mean, time goes so, you're exactly right. Time goes so fast. It is just a little blip in the grand scheme of things.
But a vapor.
But a vapor, absolutely. It was, and like I hear people say that sometimes about marriage. Boy, it's so hard to stay married for 50 or 60 years. It's really not. I mean, it's just like that. You know, you think about like Adam and Eve. You know, they're probably married about 900 years. So, you know, us being married 50, 60, whatever, it's nothing. You know, nothing. Blip on the screen. Great points. Great points. The righteous acts of others cannot be transferred to my credits before or after my decease. I must answer for my own acts of my own body. And that's one thing that they taught with indulgences is that people like Mary and the apostles were so good. They did so much more than they had to do to be saved that you could borrow some of their goodness and transfer it to you. It doesn't work that way. 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 10 says, we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. All. That everyone, who does that leave out? That everyone may receive the things done in his body. What we do in this life. There's a little blip on the radar. What did we do while we're living? Whether it be good or whether it be bad. It's like I tell my students at school. I wish I could go to heaven on my parents' coattails. I'd be in pretty good shape. I think if I could slide in on them. I can't. I'm going to have to stand before God on my own 2 feet one day, and we all are going to have to say the same thing. So my parents' goodness doesn't transfer to me. It doesn't work that way. Romans 2 and verse 6, who will render to every man according to his deeds. And we see this over and over and over. These are just a couple of scriptures, but over and over. Ecclesiastes 12, 13, 14 says the same thing, where Solomon says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole of man. For every secret thing is going to be brought into judgment. What did it say? I forgot that word now. But every work of man is going to be brought in judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or bad. So we're all going to stand before the judgment seat of God based on what we have done in relation, as y'all said, to what God's word says. And somebody says, well, you're teaching saved by works. Absolutely not. We're talking about obeying God the way he says. If I add stuff to this book, that's works of man. If I try to save myself from the old law, that's the works of the law. We're talking about obeying God, obeying Christ, doing those things that he has told us to do. He will hold us accountable for those things. I cannot be saved by the prayers or righteous acts of others or even of my own self. Now, we certainly need to pray for one another. The Bible says that over and over again. But somebody, if I'm not myself penitent, somebody could pray for me and try to forgive me over and over again, and it's not going to matter. I have to respond to that message. Ephesians 2, 8 and 9 is the one that Brother Jennings uses. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. None of us are going to be able to boast in that day. Y'all were talking about, again, somebody entering heaven at the last minute. You know, if we have that wonderful gift of being in heaven, Do you think we're going to resent anybody else that is there?
I've heard Sewell say many times, if he's the least person in heaven, it doesn't matter, as long as
That's
he
exactly
gets
right.
it.
I feel the same way.
It'd be nice if our religion was like our sick leave at the company I work for. You accumulate so much sick leave, but if someone got injured or real sick for a long period of time,
Yeah.
and they run out of sick leave, you could contribute your hours to that person.
Yes.
It'd be nice if we could, like you was talking about earlier, borrow. from
Yes,
someone else.
yes.
Live on a shirt tail
Yeah.
of your parents
Yeah.
or something.
It was that way in the school system too.
Lord, you know, my mother used to say, every tub have to sit on its own bottom when it comes to
Yeah.
salvation.
Say
Yep.
that again?
Every tub have to sit on its own bottom.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
That is a
you
good
can't borrow, you can't borrow from no one else.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Any other questions, comments on that? All right. After death, there's no changing from place of punishment to place of bliss. And as I read the scriptures, there's very little said of the time between death and judgment. I think probably because it's almost insignificant, because our fate is sealed. There's a lot more said about after the judgment when the world was ended. But the best look in the entire Bible of the time between death and judgment is Luke 16. And so share a little bit of that with you here. Luke 16:19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. Boy, he's eating hound the hog every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So Lazarus in a pretty bad way. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. You know, and going back to Brother Lord, it kind of reminds me of what you just said, how brief life is. So, you know, Lazarus during his life was thinking, you know, why am I going through this? In the vast scheme of things, that's not much. You know, so whatever we have to endure in this life really is not much in the grand scheme of things.
Rich man's going through it.
That's exactly right. It says the rich man also died and was buried. And in hell or in Hades, he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeth Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. To me, that might be part of the punishment. Is at least I don't know that it's like that after the judgment day when you have heaven and hell. It talks about hell being like a bottomless pit. So will they be able to see still in heaven? I don't know. But apparently, at least when we die, if we're not right, we're going to be able to see those that are. That's got to eat you up and think, that could have been me. I could have been there in that. He said, anyway, he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I'm tormented in this flame. What a sad state that is, isn't it? I mean, it's tragic for anybody that finds themselves lost. And it's so unnecessary that happened to anybody. Jesus' sacrifice is sufficient to save everybody, to save the entire world. It says, but Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receivest thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And here's the part I wanted to emphasize. And beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. So no matter how much at that point, if somebody dies lost, their fate is sealed. They can't cross over the other side. Now, as we point out we're just talking about this in our Bible class at school the other day. On the flip side, that's a positive side too. If we're with Abraham there, we can never be lost again. That's pretty cool to think about too. So we're there from then on until Judgment Day. So our fate is sealed one way or the other at that point when we die. So there is no getting out of purgatory, out of punishment. Brother Don.
What's interesting is the next request that the rich man had, you know. Now he realized now he's in a place of torment, but he had another request of it. And I tell people a lot of times when I'm studying, you know, people already say, well, if I agree with this, then I'm saying my parents or friends or whoever going to hell. I said, no. If they are in fact in hell, they'll want you to do the right thing. And that's the point that the rich man requested.
Yeah.
You know, that I got 5 brothers back there. Go back and tell them on this place of torment.
Yes, sir. Well said. Well said. The Bible knows nothing of indulgences, either plenary or partial. This word means like entire, complete, as opposed to partial. Hebrews 2 and verse 3. How shall we escape if we neglect so great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him? Either we're saved or we're lost. Now, there's no in between. There's one or the other. Okay. Any other questions, comments on that part?
I was a little boy. My grandparents passed away. My grandparents, I told you before, they were Catholic. And communion was served, and my mom, we were in the Methodist church. My mom would take me to the Methodist church. So my grandparents passed away, and my grandparents were buried in the Catholic church. They had mass going on. And I recall after mass was over with, and Grandpa buried him, that the priest come to Dad and collected $5 to help bring my grandparents out of purgatory. Never forget that.
Wow.
Never forget.
Wow.
How would they know in purgatory? How would they know?
What the priest would go and get, he had to perform a mass, and they had to pay for that mass. So this is in my lifetime, you know.
Well, and,
We don't understand how far lost the Catholics are, you know, but just being thankful, we all need to be thankful that we weren't brought up in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic at an early age.
I wonder if the
I
Catholic
wasn't
Church,
raised Catholic, but I was, because my mom, you know, that was part of, Dad was actually communicated from church just as soon as they married.
is that right?
He wasn't allowed to go back to church, but they asked you for $5. You know, $5 to my dad when I was a little fella was a lot of money.
Well, it's like I think you and I talked about too. If priests really had that power, why would they ask money to do that?
Yeah.
Why not do that for everybody? If they had that power to forgive everybody, why not forgive everybody? That's sad.
We just, if it hadn't been for Martin Luther, I just wonder where we would be.
Yes. We can be very thankful for what he
had
did.
to change somebody to get that all out.
Yeah.
Because the Roman Catholic Church is when you look at how it created, Romans could not overthrow the church. So what it did, it brought it into its
Yeah.
being.
Yes. Well said.
What gets me is that I've got a sister that actually came to church here. She was baptized, and I truly do believe that she did not have the full knowledge, and but for the life of me, I cannot even fathom how someone could be in the Lord's church and leave it for the Catholic Church. They cannot possibly know what they're doing. And, I try to talk to them from time to time, and it's like talking to the wall. And,
Sometimes it's hardest to talk to family.
And you know what's so sad is they're good people, man.
Absolutely.
They're brainwashed.
They're good people, man.
My grandparents, they lit candles every day. That was the ceremony. They did all the things because they loved the Lord, but
Right.
But how
they
many
weren't given the chance.
Right.
Like I said, the priests spoke in Latin, and they didn't understand Latin, but they weren't allowed to give the Bible in Latin.
that's what I started saying a while ago, I wonder if the Catholic Church today, wants its members to study the Bible, or if they encourage them to, or if they don't encourage them to.
Well, it's still discouraged to
We
read
still
the
do.
Bible.
At some point, they get away with Latin, I see.
Yeah, Latin finally, the Catholic Church probably changed as much as any church that's out there, but it's still so far to the left.
Well, that's why you wish you wish it'd be possible to reach the Pope. If you could convince him, the influence he could have on the
Oh,
whole thing,
Yeah, he's for the transgenderism, he approves of that.
Yeah.
Actually had them, at the Vatican out dancing, I saw the video. So, they have gone completely off the rails.
But there's a certain stipulation he put on it though, but still he okayed it. He was saying I guess some people doesn't qualify and some does. But that's wrong.
The Catholic Church now is blessing homosexuals, and I never thought I'd ever
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
was staunch as far as marriage between a man and
Right.
a woman, you know.
Yep.
It's just like they change with the times, I guess.
Yep. Yep.
And we
Well
can
said.
be guilty of that too.
We can. You're right. You're exactly right. All right. Concerning morals, killing. Was the Catholic Church say related to killing and murder? All right. It says the temporal sword, that's the physical sword, is in the hand of Peter. Spiritual and temporal, all are in the power of the church. Temporal authority is to be subjected to the spiritual. So that's saying all earthly government and so forth is under the sway of the Pope, basically is what that's saying. The power of capital punishment is acknowledged for a perfect society. Now, the Catholic Church is a perfect society, saying the Catholic Church has the authority to put people to death, which they did often in the Middle Ages, during the Reformation, etc. Holy wars were justified by the church. They were called a pious work, such as the Crusades. Full remission of sins was granted to soldiers. We mentioned that a while back. So when the Pope declared the Crusades, y'all go fight. If you die, I guarantee you, you're going to be in heaven. Well, what does the Bible say? The Bible says, thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not do murder. Murder is forbidden in the book of Romans. In Romans 1:29, it says, being filled with all unrighteousness, talking about the Gentile people, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, etc. I skipped some of that. Who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. Those that commit murder, unless forgiven, are going to be lost. They're going to be judged for that. And a scary thing to me in verse 32 is those who have pleasure in them, those that give their consent or approval of what's wrong. We'll be judged too if we go along with what's wrong.
I guess one of the biggest things that gets me is why were I convinced, or that I am so fortunate that I came to the truth that I see no other way. And yet, we can all think of a hard case of where someone was so close and that they were so loving and caring and doing everything that they could because they thought they were doing the right thing.
I think we all have that same thought.
Yeah.
How am I so lucky? How
Yeah.
am I so fortunate to be
Yeah.
a member of the Church of Christ?
Yeah.
I was raised in the church, but a lot of people like Henry, they became members even though they weren't raised in it. But how lucky are we? And think about the rest of the world perhaps being lost, you know. It's just,
I was kind of like the Heinz 57 sauce. I had a little bit of everything in me, and for some reason, I kept searching, and until what seemed like the right person came along. And I mean, if it hadn't have been for the fact that I wanted to play college baseball so bad, I don't know that I would have ended up ever at Faulkner University. Of course, back then it was
Alabama Christian.
But and I didn't even accept it then whenever I was there. But later on it came to that I really strongly, I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever in my mind, I was being led there. And the only thing I can figure out is that the Lord must have seen something in me that would not allow him to give up on me. And yet, until my mother had obeyed the gospel, nobody in my family was anywhere near being closer. Not even. It's just amazing to me that I was fortunate enough to find it. And I from time to time, I remember or think of Don Harkins, that was the way he came in as well. He just kept searching and just walked into the building one day and just said, hey, I want a better understanding of what you all believe. And,
What's that verse that says something about seeking God, though he be not far from any of us?
I think it's Acts 17.
Yeah. God is close, and a lot
Yep.
of people never know he's there.
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Well said. Yeah, I think you were some of that good soil, and I think we can all, like Brother Lloyd said, I think we can all relate to that. Paul could. We're looking the other day in our school Bible class at Romans 1:14, where Paul says, I'm debtor to preach the gospel to both Greek and barbarian, to wise and unwise. And I think what he meant by that is that it's kind of the same thing. You know, Christ, why do you pick me?
yeah.
You know, I'm convinced if Jesus had not appeared to him on the road to Damascus, he would have died lost.
Well,
He never would have changed his thinking. So he felt like he had a debt. And in that sense, all of us have a debt to pay it forward and try to reach out to others and try to teach them.
Well, and I knew at some given point, it kind of hit me, and I sort of woke up to the truth. And still, I did a lot of sinful things whenever I was younger, and things that I wish I could go back and sort of blot out or erase. Of course, it has been blotted out. It has been
absolutely.
erased. But the only thing about it is within my own head, I can't forget it. Even though a lot of times I can go for a while and not think about it, but it just can't help but keep thinking, or just realizing, why me? And of course, I know a lot of people will ask the same question, why me, for whatever
Sure.
bad luck they've had or
Yeah.
things that not worked out in their life. But yet, the greatest of those things was the one thing that I got right. And just, it truly amazes me every time I think about it.
Yes, sir. Thank all of you for those great comments. Great discussion. Y'all have a good rest of the day.